Hello, adventures. My name's Tyler.
And I'm Richard.
On today's episode, we're going over the changes to version 1.3 of Daggerheart. Welcome to True Strike.
Howdy, folks, and welcome back to the show. Oh, my gosh.
So as you can tell, I just got back from vacation because we had to hurry up and talk about these changes.
Yeah, this Daggerheart 1.3 drop that he found out while he was in the land of happiness. For our audio-only listeners, he is wearing a Hawaiian pink and blue Lilo and Stitch themed shirt.
We call these Aloha shirts now.
With some nice blue reflective sunglasses a la Top Gun. Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, he came back from a vacation just to talk about Daggerheart.
Yeah, full disclosure, we actually had a episode pre-recorded to go live, well, by the time you're hearing this, today, but Tuesday, going over domain cards and stuff like that, which we're gonna have to remake.
Yeah, we're gonna do that over again because that didn't age well.
No,
in the week that it took for them to release the errata.
Yeah, so yeah, we're gonna go over some of the new stuff. Some of it it's just too deep, too dense. We'll go over the bullet points they've given us here and their changed log and such. But we're gonna break some of this out into full episodes. We're gonna remake the domain card episode. And we got a lot to talk about, so let's jump into it.
Yeah, there's a lot here, and there's some really big changes. And I think the most important takeaway from this is something that you said when they dropped. Clearly, they're listening to playtesters, right? Because we've got some interesting things happening here, and some really, really big changes, too.
Two-pronged, though, question. This came out very quickly.
Yeah.
So, yes, listening to playtesters, I love to see it, stuff like that. How much of this do you think was already in the works, though, by the time we got our hands on this open beta?
So what I think, and I have some suspicions here, I think that some of these things, like specifically some of the Ancestry cards and some of the community cards, I'm willing to bet they had multiple versions on back, right?
Oh,
so
and then like with the community lean one way.
Yeah,
and they're like,
so basically, I think they had an idea that they were all like, ooh, this sounds neat, but maybe this is a better idea, so this is what we're going to release, right? And that's what they did. And then when they saw it in action in playtest, people talking about it, they were like, well, maybe this other one that we did is a little bit better. So they switched those back out for something that they already had on deck. Or like some of these were original ideas that they didn't think were up to snuff. But then after practice, they realized that, oh, that idea that we had before, that's actually not that bad. Let's switch it back in or make this adjustment here. So I do think that some of this stuff was already something that was on the back burner that they, are pushing out to us now because it makes more sense now to see it in live actual play. And I think some of this is reactionary too. So some of this stuff, I don't think that they did have an idea that it was going to happen like this, and they changed it just based on feedback of players.
Gotcha. Nope, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Another thing, let us know if we're trying something new. Using the powers of audio post-processing, we're adjusting the audio to bring down some air conditioning. Because normally, Richard and I just sit in a human sauna created by a combination of the sun's waves and our body heat all encased in this room. We're attempting to record comfortably and not hate ourselves. So this is on.
Yeah.
And we're going to try to remove that as much as possible.
So last year we didn't have the video.
Yeah.
So you could hear us and we sounded great.
Yeah, it sounded wonderful.
But if you were to be a fly on the wall and look at us, we were like glistening
so
from sweat.
Just moisture everywhere.
Yeah, which is a whole different show that's on a different platform.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're trying something.
We actually charge for that one.
Yeah.
So we can't give that away for free anymore. But all right, let's start off on some of these universal changes.
Yeah, so universal changes. We got the very first thing we have on here is damage thresholds. So they have adjusted damage thresholds across all classes. Stress points are no longer marked when you take damage below your minor threshold.
Right.
This is a big one.
This is, and granted, I'll say this 6 times during this conversation probably. This is the biggest thing to me of this whole playtest errata, but we'll see if I stick to that later. just because some of this thing, like, right, okay, so for example, across all classes, the damage thresholds have been adjusted.
Yeah.
So let's look at Cornelius Rivet Bottom. Good sir. The Seraph's starting damage thresholds was 5 for your minor, 10 for your major, and 15. But now it starts off at 1 for your minor. So you're looking at 1, 8, 16.
Yeah.
So your high tier is actually up 1.
Yep.
And your other ones are reduced.
Yeah.
But hey, that's interesting.
It's interesting. We'll have to see how it actually shakes out in play. I think I like this change though.
I definitely like this change.
Yeah.
It simplifies some of the things. Now you're not, if you're running low on stress anyway, you're not doing the game of like, well, am I just going to, am I taking a damage regardless? Do I want to get it 1 below?
Yeah.
It's going to be a point of damage anyway. That's just gone. That goes away. And if you were to have a class like this and you raise up your damage threshold somehow, you might take no damage.
Yeah.
Below the minor.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, which is rad.
I like it. I like it.
I'm into it.
Yeah. And this is one of those changes that I don't think they had in the can. I think that this one was reactionary.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
this would be a well, I say this would be a quick one to fix, in the world of I'm not over here designing Daggerheart. But they did go through and adjust levels for all the classes. Maybe that's a little more difficult. Your design team is Mr. Stark. If you're listening to this, your design team is on point. You're getting these out this quick. Bravo to all of you. This is awesome. Amazing. So thank you. All right.
You want to take the next one?
Oh my goodness. I don't know, because this one you broke out into the fact that we have to go into so many things. The bullet point here is that GM moves and fear. Basically, they've changed the way GM role structure works so that you now choose to make a move or take fear on rolls with fear, not both.
Yep.
This is big outside of, for combat and everything. This is going to keep your fear die pool down. And keep things flowing a little better, I think. And I think that's the main thing they're going for here, is just keep things flowing naturally. This reduces the fear economy, which impacts blah, 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 blah. Yeah, they said here too, but fancier words. Also, it streamlines what you can spend fear on, taking weight off the GM's side of play. Now, Richard, streamlines what you can spend fear on, but they don't tell us right here. Where do we find that?
You find that in the actual manuscript itself. Yeah, so you'll have to reference the manuscript. So that happens a couple of times throughout here where they kind of just give you like, this is the change.
Yep.
And you're going to have to actually dig into the manuscript to figure out exactly what changed on there. So what did change on this was we went down from a list of, I think, about 8 or 9 different things that they gave you that you could spend fear on to a very short list of 4. So now what you can spend your fear on is interrupting a PC during combat to take your action, add 2 tokens to the action tracker, use an adversary's fear move, or use an environment move. So those are the 4 that you have now. So it is very much streamlined from the others. The biggest thing that they removed from this fear spending list, number 1, was to take an advantage on a roll. That was a big one.
Right.
Another one was to clear a condition of a type, which is also pretty large. Add a d6 damage die. Again, another big change.
That's a big, yep.
And the interrupt used to take 2 fear tokens. So to interrupt somebody, you would have to spend 2 fear. Now it's just down to a single 1.
Right.
So you're losing some pretty big actions in there, and they're also making it easier for you to interrupt PCs. I think they're just trying to clean up the DM side of things, so the game master side of things.
For sure.
So you have a more clear, concise idea of what you're doing with your fear.
Yeah, it's all in the spirit of keeping play going smoothly.
Yeah.
And the GM's already balancing so much, especially when you're looking at these adversaries that you're managing, and you've got their health, you've got their stress, you've got all these things, and you're managing how much fear dice you have and how much action tokens you have. It's nice to just kind of like, okay, a couple things off the plate, and what am I going to do with this fear die? Oh, these few things instead of this whole massive list
of things. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. The next thing we have on here is stress points. So we already talked about part of this, which is you're not taking a stress when you go below your minor threshold. But the next big change here is the starting number of stress point slots for all players is now 6.
Yes, because it was 5 previously, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So that's a pretty big change, a significant change that is going to make management of stress a little bit easier
Mhm.
and a little bit easier to swallow taking on all that stress. This is definitely going to change things like the druid class where you're using stress to change class, to change like your form and all that stuff. So
It's interesting to me that they raised it now because they've removed one source of stress
yes.
and have increased how much stress you have. So I think this is one of those things where like, yeah, player feedback definitely must have been the swaying argument here.
And I also have an inkling that we are going to see some changes in domain cards and stress costs. Yeah, because I think that's where this is coming from. I think this is coming from the stress being induced by certain domain cards, and this is going to help offset that a little bit, with the change of the stress for the damage as well as this additional stress is going to make it a little bit more easy to manage your domain cards and do more things.
Okay. We have using an action, added use as an action as phrased moves the required token be added to the action tracker during the combat, even if they don't require an action roll to use. Basically, anything that uses an action gives the action token.
Yeah. It's just a little bit of a clarification to make sure that everything's tracking the way that it's supposed to. Chapters. So we've renamed all of the things in the book to be chapters instead of parts. So now everything is actually chapters in the guidebook. So it's just a nomenclature change to make things easier to understand instead of having everything in parts and stuff like that. It just makes more sense for it to be in chapters.
Yep. Big thing there. They also took some of the stuff from chapters 3 and 4 and put them into a chapter 5 and pushed the stuff from chapter 5, which is going to be filled out later, to chapter 6.
Yeah.
So the last chapter is still kind of, it's being added in later, but they pushed that down the road. This is your new chapter 5. Also, we're looking at the heart of the game, which is something they clarified here, which they added a section emphasizing, rulings over rules, about focusing on narrative rulings instead of the word of the law, which is always been a big thing at our table, and I think a lot of tables.
Yeah.
But they're really trying to push it with Daggerheart, where like, look, it's your game.
Yeah. This is this is what I refer to as the unwritten rule they've made written.
Bingo.
Is what it is. So this is the unwritten rule of a lot of game tables, which they have made explicit as a written rule in here that says, when in doubt about how a rule applies, the GM should always make a ruling that aligns with the narrative, because the texts don't always answer every single possible scenario. And the rules aren't always going to come down to every little minor thing. And that goes for every single game that's like a TTRPG. There's always going to be a situation that your players are going to put you in as a game master that is going to challenge your knowledge of said game and how things are going to play out. So this is kind of that, rules overruling. That's just making sure that your gameplay stays smooth and sticks with the narrative that keeps everything fun for everybody. Safety tools. So they've moved the lines and veils and the X cards and open door policy to chapter 3. So basically they put this stuff under the session 0 and safety tools section of the book. And if you're unfamiliar with what lines and veils and the X card and stuff like that is, these are tools for game masters to be able to, on a session 0, set table boundaries and what everybody at the table expects out of the game.
Yes. So
like things that people don't want to engage with, the type of game that they want to play, or themes that they don't want included in their game or don't want to be exposed to. So all this is just moved to where it needs to be, which is under the session 0 and safety tools chapter.
Yeah, I'm not surprised this is being fine-tuned and worked on. We already know Spencer Stark's big on this, and something coming from Critical Role too. Of course, this is going to be implemented out the get-go, which is good to see.
Yeah.
Moving on to some of the more specific, away from the universal changes, but down to chapter changes. In chapter 1, we've got changes to classes.
Yeah.
It's a big one here.
This is a big one.
So I'll give you the short version, which is that the Bard class has modified the Rally class feature. Guardian has modified the Unstoppable class feature. Ranger has modified the Companion Sheet and Ranger's Focus class feature. Rogue has modified the Hide class feature along with the Night Walker specialization and mastery. The Seraph has modified the Prayer Dice class feature. Sorcerer's modified the Channel Raw Power class feature. And the Warrior has modified the Battle Strategist and Combat Training class features. And added the Attack of Opportunity class feature. Woo! Yeah. there's a lot of bullet points there, which we will be tackling in its own broken off episode.
Yeah, we're going to go through each one of these classes and talk about the class features in their current state, as regards to each one of those classes. But if you do want to see these, all you have to do is go to the section of the new playtests. They have version 1.3s of all of the class guides. And it's page number 3 on that. If you go there, it's your basic class information, your class features in the bottom left-hand corner. You can look at it and see what those are, or you can wait for us to talk about it in the next episode.
Woo!
Yeah. The next thing we have is domain cards. Swapping out cards in combat now uses an action.
This is another reason we have to redo
Another
the episode.
big one, because that is a huge change. Yeah.
Yes.
So now it takes an action to swap out that domain card. And this is, before it was just taking the amount of stress required from the card itself. So if it was a 0, no stress. If it was a 1 or 2 or a 3, you would just take that much stress, you'd swap it out and then go ahead and do it. Now the act of swapping is an action.
Right.
So a little bit different, a little bit more balanced, I feel.
I was going to say, I don't disagree with this.
I don't disagree with this.
No.
Yeah.
I think we actually brought it up in the episode that no one will ever see. That
oh yeah, no, we talked about it specifically.
Since it was instant, you could potentially bring it out almost as a reaction in the middle of something happening.
Yeah.
And now that it's an action, that is gone entirely.
It's going to change the way that people build their vaults, honestly.
Oh, for sure.
It's going to change the way you build your vault, because now you have to think about that. You're giving another action to the action tracker. So that means another adversary's move or action is going to happen just because you want to switch out a card.
Right.
So you're going to have to think a little bit more about it.
But on the bright side, if you really feel like you need to swap this out, it's safe to do so.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not rolling.
No, you're not rolling. You're just fueling.
You're fueling. Yeah. Exactly. Yep. Looking at the loadout in the vaults, we've clarified that the recall cost is paid for the card in your vault, not the card in your loadout currently.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones that you probably realize, but maybe not. There's probably some confusion at the table discussion there. Just laid out, you're paying to the one that's in your vault. You're bringing it out.
Yep. The next thing we have on here are changes to Ancestry. And this is where it gets super interesting to me, because this is some changes to how some of these classes actually work. Now, they did make minor changes to all of the classes. So they included some stuff like lifespans and did some wording changes, which was really, really cool. They also made a couple clarifications with proficiency and how it operates with some of these class features.
So like the what is it? The
Dracona
and the rivets.
Yeah.
It's really, they just defined like, hey, it's this times your proficiency, or like this how many dice you use. Yes. So,
exactly. So a lot of them just had those little small changes. Now we did have quite a few that had drastic changes. So those are the ones we're going to go over now, starting with demons, which this one hurts. So demons had a fearless ability. And now before, when you rolled with a fear, you could mark a stress to keep that fear from the game master, which I thought was amazing.
No, that's awesome.
That was so cool, because you'd be all like, oh, I roll with fear, but you don't get it because I'm marking my stress now. So they took that away completely. Now it's just you can mark 2 stress and make it a roll with hope instead. Not bad. That's still really good, because you're still taking it away.
Yeah.
Technically. It doesn't feel like you're taking it away because it's not as malicious as before, where you're all like, no. You're just making it with hope now. So I guess technically this is an upgrade, but it feels like not an upgrade because I really liked the malicious intent of taking something from my game master.
Which, like you said, you still are.
You still are, but it doesn't feel the same.
It's gonna. Oh man, this is where stress. Really,
and it's costing 2 more stress.
It's such an interesting. One additional. But man.
Yeah.
So you're really managing the stress, and the fact that you're making it hope means that you're going to gain a hope.
Yes, you're gaining a hope from this. And rolling with hope is always going to be better. So it's a good change. It is a good change, but
better for the player.
It's better for the player. Yeah.
Something you're going to break out less often.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Maybe.
I think you're going to use it less because of the fact that it's 2 stress now.
Even
with the extra stress,
be able to use it as
you're
much.
not going to be using it as much because your fuel now is at you're going to hit that cap sooner.
I think there's going to be some classes and stuff that actually make use of this better than others.
Yeah.
if you have the ability to remove stress on yourself.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, so yeah, that's the demon. You want to do fairy?
No, but I will. Yeah. The fairy flight. Before, you would mark a stress to take flight until rolling with fear, and you would gain 2 evasion. Now you mark a stress to take flight for a number of minutes equal to your level with a +2 evasion. So you get the +2 evasion, but it's equal to level.
Yeah.
Also, Luckbender. When you reroll feature now costs 3 hope instead of 1 stress.
This is some big changes. So Luckbender alone, 3 hope instead of a stress, you're going to be using Luckbender a lot less. So this is reeling in the fairy all around.
Yeah.
On all aspects, because Luckbender is now something that you're going to be casting a lot less.
Well, at least you don't have 2 abilities, both using stress.
Yeah. And I think we actually discussed flight in an episode and how kind of like broken it was, because you're just going to be flying all the time, really. And then like the only drawback was that 1 roll could knock you out of the sky, right? But that was it. You would just fly forever. So like, why not just like, here, I'm going to fly for a while and get the plus evasion, and then I'm just going to keep doing it. Yeah, until I roll with fear. Now they're really restricting that. So now it's down to minutes.
Yeah, but it's so. Okay, so do you still get knocked out of flight from fear?
So yes, but it's the minutes thing is like the biggest thing. Yeah, okay. The amount of time, that's the biggest restriction here, because it's not just any time.
Because during combat, if you're using this in combat, minutes isn't really going to get away from you usually.
True. Yeah. Not in combat, really. It probably wouldn't get away from you there.
This more reels in out of combat use.
Out of combat stuff. You know what? I'm going to double check that just to make sure that we are right here. We want updated cards, just because I do want to see whether or not that is. But if that's not,
the big thing for me.
Yeah. If it's not out of combat, then that definitely does give you a little bit of a bonus there, because of the fact that you don't have to worry about that fall, right? Because that was my main issue with it before, which was you're fine until you fall. And then once you fall, then, you're having a bad time. So,
so while you're pulling it up.
Yep. So no, you do not get knocked out on a roll of fear.
There we go.
That's
so this
huge, yeah.
is what I would like to call a secret buff.
Yeah. Secret buff.
Because if you're using this, it nerfs your out of combat utility just a little bit, as far as just I'm always flying. Okay. But in combat, which
now you don't have to worry about
dropping
now.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Now you just you spend the stress, you're just flying.
Okay, you've turned me around. It's a buff.
You want to take on Fawn?
Yeah, so Fawn got a big change as well.
Wow.
So before we had headbutt, right? So you could mark it to then just headbutt somebody.
Yep.
And we talked about headbutt. People have talked about headbutt online, about how it scales, right? So it gets bigger the bigger you get. And it was a pretty decent ability once you realize that it scaled. It's just gone now.
Yeah, it just doesn't exist.
Completely. Doesn't exist. Now, what you get instead, I prefer. So now headbutt is gone. We have 2 new abilities. The first one is leap. You can now jump across gaps and chasms without making an agility roll. Period. Full stop. So that's just, you got a gap, you can just jump it because you're a goat.
Well,
without making the
cynical part of me wishes there was still a roll.
So I really, really like that. It's cool. It's just a neat ability. Now, there obviously gaps and chasms does leave a little bit to be desired, because technically you could look at the Grand Canyon and say like, that's a chasm, but you're not going to let me jump across it. So there's going to be some game master trickery on the back end as to what constitutes a gap or a chasm. Gap, not so much, but chasm, yes. But I do like this, that it's just like a straight up no agility roll, essentially.
And if it said agility with advantage, I would 0 questions asked, but just don't make it at all.
No, I like
it. Too
it.
cynical.
I like it. The next thing we get is kick. So on a successful melee attack, you can now mark a stress to kick for an extra 2d6 damage that also pushes your target. So that's really cool. So it's just like an extra little bit of damage. You can just do like pow pow and then kick. So yes, headbutt was cool and it's gone. I prefer these. Give them to me. I like them.
Kick's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that extra damage applied to your melee attack, and it pushes them.
And it pushes you. Yeah, I like it.
That can really stack up your damage roll into into the higher thresholds. Easy.
Yeah. No.
Potentially an extra 12 damage on something you've already succeeded on.
Mm-hmm.
No extra roll to hit. I love it.
That's why I'm
That's
okay.
good.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. All right. The fun girls.
Fun
Also known
girls.
as the fun grill. Always connected. The hive communication. Removed completely.
Sad.
Why?
This one hurts.
Is this just something that like
I don't know.
They saw abuse coming from it?
I don't know how, because the way that it was written left it up to the game master for interpretation, right? Which I think was perfect, because you're not always going to get the answer you want from your hive. You're maybe not going to get anything out of them if they can't help you with something, if they don't have knowledge on something, if one doesn't exist in that area. It did not seem overpowered at all, and it was one of those really cool storytelling abilities, and it's just gone.
I already had plans for this.
Gone. It's just gone. I hate it.
I don't know, like the idea that you're like out on adventure and then your fun girl just like goes to like just connect and just gets like
a little bit of insight.
Yeah,
from fungus in the area.
Someone like on a cross town or whatever. They're this like cave underground or whatever, and they're being slaughtered, and you're just like, you're like, we gotta go. Like it's going down right now. Like little things like that you could throw in as the DM of half.
Or just weird stuff like have like a fungus in an area ever like a colony ever know of somebody passing through this area in the past or something like that, and they can give you some knowledge based on like who they saw. You know what I mean? Just cool little narrative moments like that.
Maybe it was too good. Maybe we're missing something. But what you get instead
is horrible.
But it's a reference to a movie. You get the Circle of Life. You can draw the last life essence from recently deceased. Oh, dang, you're really just putting them in the ground. When within very close range of a creature who marks their last hit point and dies, spend 2 hope to describe a death ritual you perform and clear 1 hit point
on yourself. Yeah. So it's a self-heal that like every time somebody dies, you're all like, oh, I go and put a coin on their eyes, or I shake my fungus spores over their body and lay them to rest, and I gain. I mean, it's cool because you're gaining some hit points, you're clearing some hit points on yourself. This is not a good enough for taking away hive communication.
But is this during combat? Like if I'm up there and I'm like, yeah, and they go down,
like,
and I'm just like,
what are you doing over there?
I'm just
nothing.
Gain a hit point from them.
I don't like
because
it.
if you just use this on the last person killed in a round, cool. Enjoy your hit point.
I don't like it.
I don't know.
Maybe I want hive communication.
Maybe
back.
It's cool. Maybe you're like a cool Fungrill monk build, and you're doing this like fungi be with you, and you're just gaining a hit point every time you get a kill. It's I
still don't
what
like it.
What do they call those? Like a siphon ability.
I don't know. It's just weird.
You're punching the soul out of them.
It seems more like an out of combat thing.
Oh, that probably sounded terrible.
But like, yeah, I don't know. I just, this seems pointless. I mean, not pointless. It's got a point, obviously, but I just really like my narrative abilities.
I'm gonna make this cool.
Yeah,
I'm gonna come up with a way to change your mind on this. What is interesting though is it for sure it doesn't have as much of the story flair and roleplay opportunity as it previously did, for certain. It leans into the actual mechanic advantage of gaining health.
Yeah.
And leaves behind the fun story flair.
The fun story flair, which I'm always gonna hate when they take away stuff like that.
You can tell me about these turtles?
Galapa. So the shell was previously your proficiency bonus added to your armor score. Now you choose basically not to wear your like armor in general, and you can just have a shell like be it, right? So you add your proficiency to your armor score just like normal, but now you can choose not to wear armor, and the shell is your active armor. So I see this is probably going to be more for specific build type things. So not a massive change, just allowing you to not have to take armor and just depend on your shell being your armor.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I guess.
Yeah, it is what it is.
I can't think of any. I want to argue with you about something. This is just what I like to do.
No.
And I'm totally neutral.
Yeah, this is just, it's a change. Yeah, it's a change. And the same thing goes with the next one. Give us human.
Humans. Perseverance. You now mark stress instead of hope to re-roll a failed roll that utilizes an experience. I don't like this one.
Why?
Because as a human, I don't want to be stressed that I'm pushing through to make something happens because of an experience. I don't want to think of like a stressful time to really push through and recall a memory. I want to use hope, because as humans, that's what we do, Richard. We hope.
Okay. I think that this is leaning more into the mechanics of things.
I think hope is gained
because
too often, and it made you able to use this more often.
Yeah.
And they're trying to reel it in.
They're trying to reel it in a little bit.
I wish it would go back.
Yeah, it's one of those things.
You're playing a human.
It's a change.
You're playing the basic character. Just let me be hopeful. Like it's now you just be as hopeful as you want. It's not gonna help you.
Yeah.
What about the Katamari?
So the Katari have feline instinct before you could mark a stress to reroll an agility roll hope die.
Mm-hmm.
Now before you roll, so this is now before you even
took
make
this
the
from
roll,
the humans.
you can spend hope to add a +1 per hope you spend to the final roll.
Mm-hmm,
So instead of just a reroll, now you're like saying, I'm going to tank 3 hope to give this roll a +3.
Yeah.
So a little bit of a nerf, I feel. I guess it depends on how you look at it. It might not be. I don't know the odds as far as the math end of this thing works. But it's definitely a change. I can't really say that it's for better or for worse. It's a change.
Yeah. It's spend hope to add 1 per hope spent to final roll.
Yes.
Yeah. Is what it is.
Yeah. And there's no cap to that. You can spend
I was gonna
all
say,
the hope that you have.
The fact that you can just dump hope into it.
You can just dump it in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not against it.
Now, orcs.
Orcs.
That's a pretty bad change.
No. So, sturdy. Before, when you would mark an armor slot, you could re-roll, or you could roll a d6, and on a 5+, you wouldn't have to mark it.
Yeah.
So
that
basically,
was really cool.
Yeah. You would, yeah. So now, that's gone.
Yeah.
And with sturdy, you raise either your major or severe damage threshold by 1 each level.
Yeah. So every time you level up, including first level, you get to choose one of those to give a +1 to.
So including first level as in first to second, or when you pick
Like
first,
when you
just
I
pick
think when
one?
you get first level, you choose one of those and you add.
Oh,
yeah.
I missed that.
Yeah. So that's good. It's not bad, but I really, really like that whole, like, I want to do a heavily armored orc build and then sometimes not have to actually spend my armor slot when I use it.
This is big though.
It's big, especially with the changes to thresholds.
I love that they didn't include minor as an option.
Oh yeah, no, mine is not an option. No.
But you could
I would probably like it better if they did.
You could really push your severe and way up.
Really push your severe up there. I just liked the old sturdy better, just because I like it that
you want to gamble,
that 1 in 6 gamble to be able to not
yeah.
use your armor seemed like a really fun thing to do.
Right. So that's the classes we're going to talk about right now.
Yeah. So the other ones had some changes, but
ancestries.
Yeah, those ancestries were all mostly just wording and stuff like that. But those were the major ones.
Mm-hmm.
Then we did the same thing with communities. So all the communities got a little bit of a rework. Yep. Because some of the wording was wrong and some of them and stuff like that. But then some of them got major reworks to them. Some of them not so major. Some of them incredibly major. So yeah, we'll go over those now. Highborn, the inheritance ability did change. So before it gave you extra gold and advantage when dealing with nobles and people of that nature. Basically what they did was they renamed it to privilege instead of inheritance, and they removed the extra gold. So you don't get extra gold, but you still do get advantage when dealing with people of like highborn nature. So your nobles and your rich folk and just generally classy people.
Why though?
Why?
Why take away my gold?
Just take away the gold.
Why?
Yeah.
And we'll get to that too, but they
probably because they're reworking gold.
They'll say they rework some of the gold. Just give me some extra gold. What's good at hurt?
Because you're highborn, you don't have an inheritance, you have privilege. And I think that's what it comes down to, is that they're changing it from inheritance to privilege.
Fair enough.
So you're not inheriting anything. You're not getting an inheritance. You just come from a life of privilege, so you understand the realm.
Yeah. Richard, before we get to Wildborn, I have to ask you a question.
Oh, no.
Are you getting cold?
No.
I don't know what it is about this spot right here where I normally rest my hand, but over the table, It's like there's a specter laying across
Yeah.
the table because this
There's a
hand
ghost.
is going numb. It's so cold.
We're running into the
So I can't-
opposite problem now. So we've adjusted so that we can have the AC on, but now Tyler's going to become frozen in spot.
I'm gonna have frostbite on my podcasting hand.
It's because you're wearing Hawaiian clothes, so you're acclimated towards
You're right.
warm weather. So you're just not used to the.
I have a nice
the
weird
AC.
sunburn everywhere that I didn't have a magic band, which is also fun.
Maybe that's why you're cold, because it's sunburn.
This one's fine. So back to the podcast. The Wildborn, Lightfoot. Remove the ability to spend hope to transfer your ability to remain unheard while moving to team members.
Yeah.
Sad.
So it's the same as it was before, but now you can't extend it to your team party.
It makes
Team
sense.
party? Team members.
I guess.
Yeah, I guess it was a little bit overpowered.
Was it though?
Well, so this actually harkens back to another change later, which is group action roles,
Mhm.
which we'll get to down the line.
Fair
So
enough.
they've added something in that kind of fills that role and requires you to make a roll and not just do it as
Roll.
part of
Great.
your community. So
Roll. Crit.
stop it.
Roll. Sorry.
Next thing we have is the Ridgeborn. So steady. Basically, they removed the +1 to your armor score and replaced it with a +2 to the severe damage threshold instead. So instead of getting more armor, you're basically offsetting your whole Ridgeborn. So your steadiness is now your severe damage threshold.
They're really bringing down these armor,
Yeah, they're really reeling in armor a little bit.
which that's another thing we'll get to, but there's some adjustments to armor, values and how many slots you have.
Yeah.
So that's another thing in line there where just another thing bringing that down. But +2 to severe, not bad.
No, that's not bad.
Especially as a
kinda like this.
Ridgeborn orc.
Yeah, I kind of like this one.
You
I
just
mean,
have a out of this world, severe
damage
threshold.
threshold.
Yeah, you're
no,
only ever taking 2.
That's cool.
Neat. The Wanderborn, Nomadic Pact. A pack you would spend one.
Oh, pack, not packed. I already
Richard.
wrote that. Sorry.
All right, you read it.
Nomadic pack. So before it was a pack that you would spend 1 hope to reach into and pull out a useful item, which I thought was really, really cool because it was like your bag of all kinds of useful
Right.
things. Now you're not going to reach in and be all like, like I'm going to pull out like a pair of night vision goggles. Right. This was, like based on the, you talking to your game master and what you would have in that pack. I thought it was really, really cool. Now what we get is absolutely bonkers insane. Bonkers insane. So instead, what happens now is you, at the beginning of each session, you randomly choose a community card. So all of these community backgrounds, you just shuffle them up and you draw one.
Mm-hmm.
And then for that entire session, you have that community's perks. At the end of the session, you replace it with Wanderborn again. And then at the beginning of the next session, you switch Wanderborn out and you randomly select a new community background, which is insanity.
Please explain to me how this works in word pictures.
So basically,
Because I'm trying to, I understand the
like you mean
mechanics of it.
story-wise?
Yes.
Okay, so
100%.
story-wise, Wanderborn now is
I'm a
not just a
Wanderborn.
nomad. So before
Right.
it was a nomad, you've gone all these places and you have
I
a
got
pack
this Mary Poppins
that's
sack.
got all kinds of useful stuff in it that you've gathered
Yeah.
from all around the world, and you've been exposed to all these different things. So now the explanation is you've been all around the world and you've been exposed to all these
Mhm.
different things, which means you've picked up a little bit from every community. And how they explain that is every single session you're pulling on a new community's experiences,
This would make a great bard.
which is amazing for something like a bard. Yeah, because this is just
Uh-huh.
crazy, because every session you're just drawing a new one, and it's going to change the way that you play and you approach things, because you could randomly pull Highborn and now you know how to talk to nobles for a session.
For a
session, you're really good with talking to
Yeah.
nobles. The only weird thing is that like the next session you go back through and you pull something like the Ridgeborn.
I was gonna say
or the-
Ridgeborn, you
or
got-
the Wildborn, where you're like, I'm gonna go sneaky through the woods, and everybody in the party's like, we're still at the castle, bro. None of us know how to talk to these rich people, and you're all like, let's go to the woods and be quiet.
Just today, I'm feeling like
Today I'm feeling quiet.
I feel like I could take an additional 2 hits point, damage and still be
And they're
in
like,
my
but-
major threshold.
But where do we put the fork on the plate? And you're like, I don't remember. That was yesterday.
Well, that's the thing is sessions can end midday.
Yeah.
That was 30 minutes ago, dude.
This is a new course. I don't know what happens at this course of the meal. Yeah, it's interesting. It's wild. I don't know about it though. I think the pack was cooler. The pack of many things.
I like the pack better.
The pack of many things was a lot cooler. I think
was the pack too complicated? I don't understand. Like,
I think it was too complicated. Yeah.
Why change it?
I think it was too much for people to be all like, well, what would be in this pack that could be useful but not game breaking? That's what it comes down to. And I think that was hard for a lot of people to wrap their heads around as far as like, what can I pull out of here that's not going to break the game, but could be applicable in this scenario.
Now it just feels like they needed another community, but didn't want to make another one.
They're like, this is all the communities.
We need one more, Matt. And he's like, I'm out of ideas.
This is a wild change.
And Spencer walks in, just roll the dice.
Yeah, it's weird. I like the old one.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. We'll see how it plays out.
Fair enough. The Seabourn. Safe Harbor. Additional downtime action once per session. It's gone.
Gone.
Which, to be fair, and I'll get to what they've added. Actually, you know what? I'll read that one first in case I eat my words. Know the tide. When you roll with fear, take a token and put it on a community card. Put it on the community card. You can spend 1 or more tokens to add +1 action rolls. Clear all tokens at the end of session and make them hope instead.
That's really
Neat.
good.
It's really good.
Really good.
The downtime action, which it was interesting because that was one of the ones where I was like, everyone's going to want to be Seabourn. Because downtime actions are huge.
Was huge, yeah.
Repairing armor, gaining health, gaining hope, removing stress, stuff like that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It was arguably better than a lot of the other ones. But this other one this new one's pretty good. I'm not saying I like it better because the other,
I am. I mean, downtime actions are big. That was huge.
I think
I like this one better.
Meta thinking, I think I like the other one better. Playing the game, thinking, and having fun, actually making choices, this is probably better.
Yeah. I like this one a lot better. I think that
you're active.
Yeah, I think you're more active. Yeah, you're doing things, and then you're not being punished for saving it either, right?
Right.
Because you're converting it into hope later on down the line.
Unless you're gonna max out on hope, but whatever,
Yeah, exactly. No, I like this. I like this change, and it is going to change who's going to be Seabourns. I think, yeah, greatly, because I think Seabourn was like the go-to if you're going to be focusing on like doing armor repairs, right?
Mm-hmm.
It kind of was like a given because that you get that extra downtime action to be able to do other things. So, I think it was going to cause Seabourn to be chosen a lot, which actually we saw that in the Critical Role one shot. 2 people chose Seabourn.
Yeah, that's fair enough there.
Yeah,
for sure. All right. So that's it for our communities. Let's finish off this chapter with experiences. They've added an expanded list of suggestions for player character experiences.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yeah. No, just more examples. Can't be a bad thing.
Yeah. Moving into chapter 2. Richard, should we wrap it up sooner than later and split this off into a 2-parter, or do you want to try to get through this all in today's episode?
No, I think we're gonna have to split this into 2 episodes just because there were the significant changes in the Ancestry communities that needed to kind of be gone over. And we do have quite a bit more to go over here before we are done with this.
Decent amount of pages left.
Yep.
Do you want to tackle some of chapter 2 is quite dense, ain't it?
Yeah, chapter 2 is very dense.
Do you want to try to tackle some more of chapter 2? We do have another like 15 or so minutes to our normally scheduled like hour-ish time slot. Or do you think it'd be better to break it off now and just wrangle everything else into the next episode and have this be a shorter week?
I think we'll cut it here because I don't want to get too far into the weeds.
You heard it here.
Yeah.
If you have anyone to blame for this, it's Richard Cullen.
It's me. But yeah, no, that way we can just say that there is a lot of cooler changes that are coming to some other stuff. We're going to get into more of the actual playing of adventure type stuff. to the stuff that's going to, you know, change the moment to moment gameplay in the next episode.
Right. You know what? Yeah, we got some time now. How do you feel so far, just in top level, about the changes to the bits of classes and stuff we've gone through, ancestors, communities, and just their speed at like getting this new playtest out? And asterisk of, do you think they're going to keep this cadence?
Ooh, that there's two parts to that. How do I feel about it first? I feel really good. Okay. Everything that I read in here overall was very positive, even if we're just talking about the stuff that we've seen tonight.
Right.
Overall, very positive. There's a couple of confusing moves here and there, but none of them are game breaking. They're just slightly saddening. The biggest one, the worst thing out of this entire thing, it was the takeaway of the hive mind of the fungirls. I am upset by that. But if that's the worst thing that they've done, then awesome.
That's also one of those things that now it's not built in, right? It's not there for players that are going to buy this book day one, never touched a playtest at all, don't know anyone that has a brand new group. They may never think of that, and that's upsetting and that's sad. And playtest, it could come back.
Yes,
in one form or another. It could come back.
And also, caveat here, that doesn't mean you can't use it.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, because it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Love the idea that
because
that's how
now that the idea
work.
Is in the world, it's wild and it's out there and it's easy to implement as a game master without actually having to have a rule be there. And maybe that's why they took it out, because it didn't have to be a rule. It didn't have to be something that was in a book or on a card. And it's something you could put out there.
Like I said, if you've never touched this and you don't touch it, your group's never touched it, you may never think of it.
Yeah, you may never think of it.
So I guess we'll have to see in a year-ish if it makes its way back in or it's referenced anywhere, even in flavor text.
It would be really cool to at least have it. Like if they're not going to bring it back as an ability, to do something like that, like you said, bring it in as flavor text, right? Where they're talking about like backgrounds more in depth and they're talking about the lore, because we're going to get more deep lore as far as like the ancestries are considered eventually. Right. And I think it's part of their, deep lore that it's going to be that they're part of a hive mind. And then that'll be maybe the jumping off point that new players need to be able to implement it into their games. But like I said, if that's the worst thing in this whole guide and this whole change, then that's great. Overall, I really do like a lot of the changes that we've seen so far. So the changes to the thresholds, huge. The changes to the amount of stress that you get, even bigger. And now the stress below the minor stress instead of, like now doing nothing. That's huge. Just the way that they're changing that mechanic has huge implications for this game.
So I was curious. Flavor text for the Fungirls. Fungirls resemble, because they expanded.
Oh yeah, they expanded the flavor text.
Fungirls specifically,
including lifespans.
Fungirls resemble a mushroom in humanoid form. God, I can't talk. Post vocation, can't do it.
Vocation.
Bearing humanoid form, bearing the features of the fungus from which they descend. Blah, 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 blah. Because of this, their appearance can vary wildly. They may be anywhere from about 2 feet to 7 feet tall, either more humanoid or more fungus in appearance, which I love that they just throw that in there. They come in an assortment of colors from earth tones to bright reds, yellows, purples, and blues. Their physical forms are non-standardized, resulting in incredible variety of bodies, faces, and limbs. That's so fun too, just multiple limbs and everything else, and get out of the humanoid shape bubble. While the common lifespan of a fungirl is about 300 years, there are reports of some living much longer. Though all fungirls speak verbally, or can speak verbally, the vast difference in the appearance of fungirls means that those of Ancestry do not have a standard or visual non-verbal means of communication. Many use I can't read this word, mycelial?
Mycelium.
Close.
Or mycelial.
There we go. Array for communication, enabling some to communicate with fungirls across long distances.
Yeah, see? Right there. So they put it in the deep lore, which all is forgiven.
Granted, it's not the
it's not a rule
continents
now.
Necessarily, but
it's not a rule now, but it's still not gone.
Right.
It's just in lore, which
love to see it.
Maybe I'm okay with now. So yeah, like I said, if that's the worst thing, we're doing okay. Yeah. Everything else in here seems to be okay. It seems to be generally good stuff, and I like that a lot. Second part of that question is, do I think you're going to keep up with the cadence? What else you got?
Really quick. very quick. Very quick. Oh god, I'm just repeating what we said. That has to be why they took it out, right? Like they were writing the flavor text and they like wrote it in there and were like,
why is it a rule?
it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just the same picture.
Yeah.
So it will just give them a new thing.
No, I can see that.
Okay, sorry.
Oh yeah, so the cadence.
Yes.
Do we think they're going to keep up with this sort of a schedule?
Right.
No, I don't think so.
Me neither.
I think that this was how fast this was kind of a fluke. And I think it had to do with two things. I think it had to do with one, community feedback. And then I think that they did have some of this stuff, like I said, on deck. So it was easier for them to get this out as quick as they could because there were some changes that they were already thinking about or already had thought that they were going to do. So it was a lot easier for them to do this first time. I don't think it's going to be like this going forward. I don't think we're going to see it. I don't think we're going to get that same amount of time between we had of launch and now that we're going to see the next update. I think it's going to be pushed back a little bit further than that.
Could go both ways though, because we got this chapter 6, right? This like creative looming in the background.
Yeah.
That could very well be almost done and we don't know. And then we get another update in a month that's just like, hey, slight tweaks here and there. And then chapter.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. A little divide and conquer versus where the 5e, playtest for, 1D&D was like months in between.
Yeah, months in between.
So,
yeah.
I don't know.
It was a pleasant surprise though.
It took me by surprise.
Yeah.
Standing in a line for Peter Pan.
Well, it was a surprise for two things. One, because it was here already. And then two, when you looked at it and you were all like, wow, there's a lot of data. There's a lot of changes. And they're not like, we knew there were changes coming, right? Because when you're reading through things like domain cards, you'll notice a couple spelling errors here and there, or things that are like double talk,
and they specifically mentioned
explicitly said
on this playtest. Even they're like, "Hey, heads up!" Beginning, I assume they probably got a bunch of feedback that was pointing stuff like that out. They're like, "We have someone on staff who is going to go through before actual real publication, and they're gonna an editor. They're gonna fix all these things." In the scheme of the playtest, we're doing so many iterations that's not happening. They're not going through and fixing spelling errors and grammatical issues and what everything every single time we push one of these. So there's going to be issues in this. You're gonna notice this.
Yeah.
Please don't tell us.
Yeah.
Because
calm down.
we know there's issues. There's gonna be more issues. And when we have our final version, the editor will do their editing and there will no longer be issues.
Yeah.
So thank you. But please stop.
Yeah.
So, for once, don't get in the comments. Like, they got this.
I think this is just them trying to really rein in the amount of emails in that box.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And the fact that you go straight through Demiplane to leave feedback and stuff, too, is awesome. Speaking of which, wow, the Demiplane just being immediately updated.
Immediately updated, yeah.
And I have been, up until pretty much today, exclusively using the PDFs and just reading everything like a caveman. I had the Demiplane account for Daggerheart already made and for Candela Obscura and stuff like that. But I was going through it today and some prep before this episode. And wow, some of the stuff it's the same general layout as the PDF, but almost organized better.
Yeah.
And then you'd be like, oh, like when I was pulling up the information on Fungirl, type on Fungirl, and then it pulls up a sidebar that has all the Fungirl stuff you can just swipe through instead of having to load a whole different page. And I'm like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
doing pretty good work with
amazingly convenient
beta version of a thing on Demiplane.
It's way better than it has any right to be.
Right.
Right now.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's like it's well done. Yeah.
So what we're saying there is, if you haven't tried Daggerheart Nexus on Demiplane, give it a shot.
Yeah, go look at it. Yeah.
Yep.
It's really, really cool.
But I think that'll wrap it up today. We got through our universal changes and chapter 1.
Yeah. So the next thing we're going to hit is going to be, like I said, some of the more stuff involving like the moment to moment stuff, which is the actual like playing the game kind of changes, as well as like some of the stuff about running adventures too. So yeah, got more stuff to talk about.
Yep.
So tune in for the next episode of exciting universal change logs.
But for now, I've been Tyler.
And I've been Richard.
And we've been True Strike.
Bye. Bye.
Hey, adventurers. Thanks again for joining us today. Please be sure to give us a follow on your favorite podcasting platforms and YouTube. If there's any questions you'd like to write into the show, you can hit us up on X, Threads, or Instagram. New episodes released every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for listening to True Strike.